Hello, everybody. Hi, I'd like to welcome you all to this session on designing asynchronous learning. My name is Michelle Schneider.
Hello, I'm Jenny, Liu Jenny.
And so we're going to be taking this session together today. So we'd like to thank you very much for coming along. I just want to start before we get into the session properly, just to give you a very brief background about myself and Jenny. So we are both learning advisors. We work for Leeds University Library, and we work for a service called Skills at Library. And basically the aim is to develop students' academic skills and academic literacies, and we do this both embedded in the curriculum, but also we offer workshops and webinars that students can just access independently. So you'd be glad to know that we do have some experience of online learning. So as I say, we've run online workshops for several years. But today's session, we are going to be talking about asynchronous learning. And in terms of asynchronous learning, that's something that's been quite recent for us. So for anyone who's here today that hasn't heard about asynchronous learning or isn't sure what it means, I'll just give you a very brief overview. So basically, when we're talking about asynchronous learning today, what we mean is learning that happens just outside of a rigid sort of time and place. So very crudely, synchronous learning would be if students come along to a live lecture and all the students turn up at the same time and there's a lecturer there, that would be an example of synchronous. If it is asynchronous, it might be just very basic. If we recorded a lecture and we put that lecture online and students accessed it in their own time, that would be a very simple version of asynchronous learning. So it's something that happens outside of a rigid time or place. Students can access it anywhere. So in terms of that kind of learning, we hadn't had that much experience, but recently we've been working with Digital Education Service, and we worked with them to develop a MOOC, a massive open online course called An Introduction to Critical Thinking at University, and this was completely asynchronous. So we're not like super experts that have been doing this for years and years. It's something that was quite new to us. And so what we're hoping is that this session is going to feel very relatable, and that we hope that we've approached it in a way where you guys will feel that you can replicate things that we've done, that it's very doable. And we know ourselves how short of time people are. We're all under so much pressure to deliver this online teaching and do it in the next, get it all ready in the next few months, perhaps. So we want to make sure that we made this as accessible and simple as possible. Just a caveat, the session isn't about MOOCs. We're just using our MOOC for illustrative purposes. We know that many of you will be using lots of different tools, so maybe Blackboard, maybe Microsoft Teams, or a different kind of learning environment. And we also know that many of you, or most of you, will be blending sort of asynchronous with synchronous. Some of you may even be lucky enough to be going back on campus to be doing maybe some small face-to-face sessions. So we know that you're going to be a lot more flexible than we were within the confines of an online course that we weren't part of once it went live. So we'll be making sure that we kind of refer to that as we go through the session. So broadly, the session is aiming to we want to share our experiences, and we're going to invite you as well to share some of your experiences with us. So hopefully by the end of the session, everyone will leave with at least sort of one action or one thing that they can do in their teaching, one sort of asynchronous learning activity that you feel confident to design. Because we know that suddenly having to move to predominantly online teaching and learning is massively challenging. We're all thinking about how to keep our students engaged and motivated, and students might be learning in different time zones. But we hope that online learning also provides like really good opportunities as well. So we were thinking in terms of, if we develop our skills and knowledge and confidence with designing some asynchronous learning activities, then it means that now when we're or in the next semester, but also going forward to when hopefully we'll be all back on campus at some point, that what we've learned, it won't be wasted. We'd be able to use a lot of these activities in blended with our live sessions and make those live sessions much more an opportunity for much more discussion, much more deeper learning, and maybe put some of that more information stuff online. So that is kind of just an introduction to the session. Has anyone got any questions or comments that they want to make just before we get started? And you can post any of those in the live chat session. So make sure comments aren't underneath the video, like we can only see them if they're on the live chat. Okay, so myself and Jenny will be keeping an eye on the chat as we go through. If you've got any questions at all or any comments you want to make, please feel free. And we want to try and make this interactive if we can. So we've got some questions as we go through. And in fact, we're going to start with that now. So we are both really interested in how confident you currently feel about designing and delivering asynchronous teaching online. So in the chat, we want you to put either 1 for very confident, 2 for somewhat confident, or 3 for not confident at all. So if you could put that in the comments, and we'll see how people are currently feeling about this. So we've got a somewhat confident, and a very confident. Right, okay, they're all coming up now. And please feel free to expand on this in the chat. So we've got some not confident at all, some sort of in the middle, lots of in the middle, which is, I think, it's how we felt at the beginning. We were sort of like, oh, very unsure about it. For those anyone who's put a 1, maybe calling on you in the session, and you can help us out, give us lots of good examples. Okay, so everyone seems to be kind of in the middle or not confident, which is totally fine. So we're hoping that by the end of this session, everyone will be feeling at least slightly more confident. Or by the end of it, you may think, I feel even worse because I didn't realize it involved this, but hopefully not. Hopefully what we're presenting is fairly simple. So I'm going to hand over to my colleague Gianni, who's going to talk to us, who's going to start talking to us about the sort of bigger picture of designing asynchronous learning.
Hello. So now I'm going to talk about how we reimagined our face-to-face teaching of critical thinking into an online environment where students set their own pace of learning. So I'm going to start with the bigger picture approach before I move to detailed look at individual activities in the MOOC. So when it came to reimagining our face-to-face teaching online, there were 2 really important aspects behind our learning design. The first one was the learning outcomes. Every step, every activity has to move the students closer to the learning outcomes. And the second aspect is scaffolding the learning. So scaffolding was really key in our learning design process, both when thinking about the whole MOOC, but also when we were thinking about the different steps and different activities in the MOOC. Every learning outcome was broken down into small chunks of learning and small steps towards the learning outcomes. In essence, with every section, we would start with input from us, from Michelle and I, and then we would increasingly hand the learning back over to the students. Just as in face-to-face teaching, a learner's input is equally important to tutors' input in asynchronous learning. So using the scaffolding approach with activities in every step really helps to keep our students engaged and motivated, and also really helps to develop and maintain this whole community of learning. So now let's have a look at an example together. Now on the screen, you can see this is activity 1 of week 1, which is called What is Critical Thinking? So usually in a face-to-face session, we would give students a group or a pair discussion activity to try to ascertain their current understanding of critical thinking. In the MOOC, we started by asking the learners to reflect on their current, their sort of like current understanding or their initial thoughts of what critical thinking means. We asked them to tell everyone what they think critical thinking is using a discussion board in this step 1.2, as you can see on the screen. This is an example of a really simple asynchronous task that could be set online. When setting up discussion boards in your own module, in the VLE or in Minerva, in Leeds, for example, I would recommend you to be clear with the purposes of the discussions and how your discussions fit in with the learning of the relevant weeks or the relevant topics. I recommend you to set direct, open questions to be answered in the discussion, and also make sure that your students know what you expect them to do, what you expect of them from the discussion. So basically set your expectations clearly. For example, you may ask your students to post a response to the question and then at least comment on one other student's post. It is also a good idea to share an example of what you expect from a discussion board with the students. So one of our learning outcomes is to reflect on your approach and ability to think critically. This discussion board activity helps us to establish a baseline which students will use to reflect how their understanding of critical thinking changes and develops over the entire MOOC. So now, if we look at an example comment from this discussion board, we can actually see there is some misunderstanding of what critical thinking means from this comment. But this is okay because the whole idea is to ask the learners reflect on where their current thinking is. And then in the next step, in step 1.3, we ask the students to watch a video about what critical thinking is. And then we ask them how the ideas presented in the video compare with this initial reflection, compare with what they put in the discussion board. So now you can see how a student, how their understanding of critical thinking develops in one of the comments from this step after watching the video and after reflecting on their ideas of what critical thinking really means. So yeah, this is another comment, and then this is after they watched the video and they said actually I never actually realized critical thinking is actually about challenging, it's about asking questions. So this is really nice, and also this activity moves the students towards our next learning outcome, which is explain what critical thinking means at university. But of course, Michelle and I anticipated the need for more explanations, and we actually added in more steps to scaffold the learning in this activity, in this activity 1 of week 1. So in the following step, in step 1.4, we gave an example of critical thinking in action. So this is the example. We used sugar tax example. And we sort of show them examples of how we challenge the idea, how we question the ideas. And then through a quiz in the next step, which is step 1.5, we test their understanding of critical thinking. So we give them a scenario and we get them to respond to the comments, basically, from the quiz, and to identify what level of critical thinking this comment really shows. So this activity then helped us to test students' understanding and to further consolidate their learning. So this is the step-by-step scaffolding of activity 1 in week 1. And to move the students forward. So normally in a face-to-face workshop, we use a model that we adapted from Learn Higher to illustrate concepts and to structure our teaching. In the MOOC, in the following step, in step 1.6, we present the same model through a video with animation that now you can see on the screen. This part of the MOOC really lays the foundation for the rest of the MOOC, because the video gives the model actually gives the students something tangible to work with and also to apply their learning. So later on in the following weeks of the MOOC, students will be able to use the same model and to structure how they would approach a question or a statement, developing their questioning skills towards a topic, or to further develop their critical thinking skills. So now if we now jump to the end of the MOOC in step 2.17, we asked the students to make their own action plan of how they would like to further develop their critical thinking skills when they start at university course. We really hope that by this point, we have provided enough scaffolding for the students to be able to do that. And so just to sum up, at this end point, we basically approached our overall learning design with starting off with mapping out our learning outcomes first. And then we broke the learning outcomes into small chunks of learning. And then we use scaffolding throughout the entire course to develop students towards every learning outcomes. Scaffolding is so important when students are being asked to complete tasks or to do activities in their own time and to do them in their own pace. It is really nice actually for Michelle and I to see in one of the after course review comments that a student said, if Matt can bring that on the slide, yeah, there we go. The student said that they really liked the structure of this course. They liked the peer review, the peer feedback activity and the reflection part, which really again reflects the scaffolding approach that we took in the learning design. So this, I hope, sums up the overall learning design approach that we took. I'm just going to pause for a minute for you guys to, if you have any questions or comments at this point, to let us know in the chat. And by the way, by this point, if you are typing your comments, if you just put a 1 into the chat to secure the space, so I know that you are taking your time to type out your comments, and I'll give you some more time to stick in your questions or comments in the chat. I'll give you another 30 seconds to do the number 1 thing to let me know that you are typing.
I think what I realised from before is that I think there's a delay maybe in typing on YouTube and then us seeing it.
Oh, okay.
Suddenly loads of 1s and 3s and 2s came up really quickly.
There was a comment from before from Louise says, very nice intro video. Are these available for staff to use for our own resources? My answer is I actually don't know. We might have to check with Digital Education Service and get back to you, Louise, if that's okay. But I assume because the video is part of the uni comms and part of the university site, I'm guessing that we can request.
No, the beginning video is quite exciting, and I thought, and
it's really good. Yeah.
And then you see my very 70s looking wardrobe as the first thing that you see. It's not in the same.
The video really made me miss campus actually. There doesn't seem to have any questions coming forward, but if you're still typing, that's fine. I'm just going to now hand it back over to Michelle, and Michelle is going to go through some of the actual activities that we designed in the MOOC. But do feel free to continue putting your comments in, and we'll get back to you later, okay?
Okay, thanks, Gianni. So I think So what was really important about what Jenny said is trying with asynchronous activities to kind of chunk things into sort of smaller learning activities. And so some of the examples that Jenny showed there were sort of videos and discussion boards. So Jenny talked a little bit about how to set up the discussion board in terms of how to actually get students to engage rather than just putting one up there and hoping that students will use them. But in terms of videos, we also just wanted to mention that a lot of discussions we've had with people, we've talked about kind of, are you going to just record a whole lecture and put it online? And if that is something that you want to do, or that you feel that is the best way, then that's absolutely fine. But if you're looking for a new way, perhaps to deliver some particularly like lecture content or video content, we find that actually smaller, shorter videos, maybe like 10-15 minute chunk videos, are more likely to keep students engaged in the content. So if you have, I was thinking that maybe sometimes, and I know for sessions that sometimes I deliver, the reason that I put all the stuff that I do into an hour is because I've been given that hour, and I can't ask students to come for 15 minutes and then do something and then say, oh, can you come back in another day when you've done this, and we'll do another 15 minutes. But actually asynchronous activities perhaps gives us the opportunity to think, can I break down that lecture or break down that thing into smaller chunks of maybe like 15-minute videos with a discussion, or 15-minute videos with a quiz or with some reading, or just for them to watch in their own time. So that's just something to keep in mind. And I can see, Louise, you said, was this totally asynchronous? Our MOOC was completely asynchronous, as in once it's gone live, we've never, Jenny and I have never had any.
Sorry, I think we just lost Michelle. Just to pick up what Michelle was talking before. Yes, so once the MOOC went live, Michelle and I had no tutors input into the MOOC. This was just because how I suppose our MOOC worked really. But I think ideally we would probably would like to say, if in our own modules or in our own teaching, to blend asynchronous with synchronous sessions or with like live sessions. So I think I'm just going to pick up from where Michelle left us talk and carry on, unless there are more questions for me to respond to. Okay, so I'll just pick up where Michelle was. Yeah, so Michelle talked about, like, when you were thinking about designing sort of using asynchronous learning blended with your live sessions in semester 1, consider to perhaps chunk your lectures into maybe 15 minutes of videos rather than record a whole session of an hour. And also use, I said about using discussion boards or using videos and animations. And you can also use some online quiz tools as well to diversify the different activities that you could use with your students. So we have another sort of like survey coming up, which is what types of asynchronous activities can you think of, or are you currently, or have you been doing with your students? So they could be again, talking head videos or quizzes, or using online tutorials. But just like to you to use the chat and let me know, and hopefully Michelle will be back soon as well, of what type of activities that you could think of using with your students when you design asynchronous. So I think I'm just going to give you like 30 seconds to a minute to type out your comments. Right, so someone said using Padlets. Yes, Padlet is a really good one to use. You can build a Padlet board into your VLE area and post some questions to populate some questions and get students to respond to those questions. Yes, you can do quizzes as well. using so say like I think in Minerva in the VLE or Blackboard you can build some quizzes and ask students to complete in their own time, and you can discuss the answers of those tests with your students in live sessions. And we also said add information from Dan says add information to a Word or a presentation document in the group for sharing to the main group. Yes, so we can ask the students to actually to participate and to collaborate in an asynchronous way. And someone mentioned Mentimeter, maybe a bit difficult, I think, with Menti to use in an asynchronous way. But Kirsty, do let me know how you use Menti asynchronously, because I only use Menti in live sessions. It's a really great tool to engage the students with word clouds or with questions or quizzes. Yes, interaction. You can talk to the get students to respond to questions using Teams. That's also a good idea. Thanks, Kirsty. Yes, I think using Microsoft Teams or any other teaching tools that your institution uses to just like establish that learning community is really important, and to get your students engaged even when they are not in a live session. Right, so thanks guys for all of your ideas. I'm now just going to crack on with the session, and we're going to show you a few more examples from our MOOC, like how we design some of the asynchronous tasks. So if we go to week 2 of activity 1.15, this is called Judging Critical Thinking. We now really hate this title now because we probably want to say something like questioning rather than judging if we have a chance to edit it. But in this activity, we have a quiz, and we actually built in some feedback. So we often do activities in face-to-face sessions that we gave them questions to respond to, right? And in asynchronous, you can still give students questions either through Teams or through Blackboard, and they just pre-populate some examples and some answers. So this activity itself shows you how we start with 2 very short extracts from the students for the students to read, and then we ask them to choose which shows critical engagement and which is like a bit more descriptive. So once they submit their answer, they got the already built-in feedback from us. So again, this is asynchronous, so we don't have chance to give them live feedback, but at least they will be able to see which one shows more critical analysis. So this is a simple quiz. And another little bit more complicated task that we've actually never used in face-to-face teaching, could you believe it, that we designed in this MOOC is peer review and peer submission. So basically what we do in this step 2.8 and 2.9 is that we show students in the previous step how to use the model that I shared with you to evaluate information, to judge the level of critical thinking in some of the comments. So then we get the students in this step to now find 2 sources that they would potentially use to respond to the question, and students need to justify their choices of the sources, and then they need to submit their choices, and the peers will then whoever's got assigned to them will have a chance to review their submission, and then give them some constructive feedback according to the assessment criteria that we set them. Yes, so this is basically the essence of this activity, which we felt like is probably another idea that you could use in your own teaching. So for example, you could ask your students get into pairs, and you give them either a question to discuss, or perhaps again ask them to do some research and find some sources, or get them to maybe write like in a short passage to respond to a statement, and then you put them into pairs or group of threes and get them to peer review each other's submissions. We actually never ever done this in face-to-face because Michelle and I don't really sort of like own any modules that we could continue to see the students. However, this is an idea that we would like to recommend. And if you do try this, do let us know how it goes as well in your own teaching. So a lot of the activities obviously could be done using Minerva and using Teams, or you can use like presentation slides as well. And I've also seen people talking about using Wiki, creating and editing Wiki. And I believe you can embed wikis into Blackboard as well, can't you? So that's something to consider. Right. So David said that students' response to wikis have been quite disappointing. Is that because the students either don't engage with the wiki, or they say things that you kind of didn't expect them to say, or do you think you could elaborate that? So in terms of wiki or Padlet or online discussion boards, from my experience anyway, I felt like it's just important to set the expectations and to also to make sure that students know why they're doing that. And I know it sounds a bit like kind of pushy to say to them now you need to complete this task so that you can get out of the next live session or get the most out of next session. Right, so the student didn't engage much. That's what David said. Yeah, so I was just going to say, it do feel quite pushy to us, isn't it? That well, we have to ask the students, you need to complete this task so you can make the most of the next live session. But also, I think sometimes setting those expectations clearly with the students, but also make sure that they know at university, they are expected to engage and to be independent and take ownership of their own learning. And eventually, how much they get out of their own learning, it really depends on how much they engage. So to maybe set that really clear at the beginning of your module as well. Oh, Michelle is now back. So Michelle, shall I hand it back over to you? I think I'm now on the bait that we do another poll basically and asking people how do they use videos in their current teaching, and where do they find their videos. Yeah,
so sorry, my internet literally just went off, which is another show for asynchronous learning, because you don't get this. Oh, so my internet never usually goes off, but there we go. Massive apologies to Gianni for having to take over it quickly. So just for this, so this last part of the session, so what Gianni and myself and what I was going to talk about was kind of making your own asynchronous activities and replicating activities yourself. However, there's so much out there that can be reused. So many people have made videos and quizzes and all sorts of different things, colleagues and just things that you find out on the internet that you're allowed to use. So what we wanted to ask you first, before we look at this in a bit more detail, is in your current teaching, do you use material such as videos that you found elsewhere to make yourself, and where do you find that material? And just while you're doing that, I'm just going to look back at other things that you've said that I've missed.
I'll just based from David of maybe it's the type of the exercise. Yeah, we're talking about like students sometimes just don't seem to engage with asynchronous tasks that we set them to do online. Yeah.
What we were thinking, and this might be optimistic, is because all the students are now sort of forced into this online environment, that they might be more open to it because they're going to get so much less sort of face-to-face for the first semester. So maybe when they're so used to doing everything online, they might be more motivated to do it. Oh, Kate, yes. Show lots of news reports via Box of Broadcast. So Box of Broadcast, a fantastic resource. TV shows and radio shows that you can make use of, and you can embed them into your courses. And yeah, and you could just get them to watch it or have discussions about it in class or on discussion boards. And Victoria, yeah, YouTube as well. So YouTube is a great, amazing source. So much good content on there, and really nice sometimes for students to have a different voice, especially if you're running the whole module and you're doing all the lectures or running all the classes. So to mix it up with different people speaking different perspectives is always really interesting. So yeah, YouTube is a great one. Although we should mention actually that YouTube is not available in China. So if you have a course where students are, a lot of students are going to be based in China still, YouTube is, you can't access YouTube. And the students can't access YouTube, sorry.
Yeah, and also I think box of broadcast content is only currently because of the lessons available within the EU. So TED Talks is definitely a good alternative. Thanks, Christina. But I'd say get in touch with your library. Obviously, in these cases, us. If you do want to use some resources that may not be available given the under the current circumstances.
And Sandra, the rules about using online materials. So I think if you're just linking to things that are out there, then actually no, because you can post a link for them to use something. I think if it'd be different if you're using it in a certain way, so like maybe actually embedding it in, I would have to check about copyright, but I think that maybe if you're concerned, I would just put a link to the thing you want someone to go and watch or read, because then it's just openly available, so that's fine. Yeah, podcasts are good as well. And so hopefully everyone's just taking notes of these things. LinkedIn, Amy Lou said LinkedIn Learning, plan to use some LinkedIn Learning videos. So yeah, so they can be really useful as well. So lots of things out there to mix in with stuff that you may produce yourself as well. So this may feel like a bit of a plug of our stuff too, but all of our MOOC content, so all of our critical thinking MOOC content is under Creative Commons license. So you can contact us if you want to take anything from there, if you want to use anything at all that's in there. We also have library playlists as well, available on YouTube. But we could also make them, I think, Jenny, I might be right in saying this, we could make them available somewhere else, like we could send you the file to embed if you have got students that wouldn't be able to access YouTube.
Yeah, I think we are currently working to put those videos available in Microsoft Stream, so then students can access them if they're in China or other places that they can't access YouTube.
Yeah, so you can make use of our resources. So just to give you an example of, because we're sharing our practice a little bit here, so just something that we thought of in a discipline specific, because it might seem that the stuff we're talking about now sits a bit outside of a discipline. But let's, for example, say you wanted students to write a short summary or review of a journal article. This might be something you might want them to do regularly, just like really short paragraph about their readings. We have in second year success, for example, we have a video that just very quickly explains what is a journal article. So you could start with a video, start with one of our videos about what a journal article is. You could then use our critical thinking model video to show how to start to evaluate an article. You could then get students to generate specific questions that would be related to their discipline and how they might read something in a Padlet. You could then get them to compare two examples in a quiz format. So kind of like what I think hopefully Jenny showed you while I was trying to fix my internet problem. And then finally they could submit their own review. So that's a way that you could make use basically of other people's material completely. You wouldn't really have to do very much yourself, and also shows how that scaffolding that we talked about and sort of chunking up that learning. And we should mention as well, we also have online tutorials, so things like referencing tutorials. We have bigger resources like Final Chapter, which supports students with their final year projects, and they can be you can link to specific sections, and that can be used by anybody. You don't have to be Leeds specific to use some of those resources. So as well as things that are external, there's lots of things that are external to Leeds, but lots of things available at Leeds, but that anyone can use from any. So if there's anyone here from a university that isn't Leeds, then you can still use those resources. Everything that Skills at Library creates is open to everyone. And we certainly make use of other people's content. One of our colleagues at Newcastle did some amazing videos explaining some really key things around academic literacy and academic skills. They were so good, the kind of things that you watch and think, I wish we'd done that, wish we thought of that. But then there's no point us reinventing the wheel. So we shared those with our students on our blog. So there's just so much content out there for that we can reuse. Okay, so I think we didn't have any other ideas for where you could reuse material from. So I think you guys kind of shared with us all the places that we could think of that would be good good places. But I suppose with lockdown, lots of places have made amazing things available, archival things or walks through museums. So amazing things. So I think when you start looking, you'll find some really fantastic resources that can definitely be used, either linked to or embedded within your own module areas.
Just to pick up some questions in the chat, Louise, so unfortunately, box of broadcast license doesn't really cover any users of outside the EU. However, if you get in touch with your library or if you're a Leeds academic, you get in touch with us. I think there are some educational license that we may be able to sort out for you, or alternatively, TED Talks, or the library actually has, again, if you are one of our Leeds academics, the library has archives, digital archives of news and of some other databases that you may be able to use as an alternative. And also, yes, we do have some resources on reflective practice. Our new reflective practice web pages will be hopefully available at some point in semester 1. But again, if you're from Leeds, we have a set of studying in a digital age lessons that again we are built together with Digital Education Service. And in that set of lessons, there is one module, I think, or one part is specifically focusing on reflective practice. There we go. There's
so this is, sorry, I asked Jono to share. Louise asked for the link to the library blog, so I'm just sharing.
Okay, great, good. Right. So going back to the digital age one, if you want to explore how to use that with your incoming students, do get in touch with us, with the library. Again, if you are not from Leeds, we do have some reflective practice information. But also, I've been researching around this anyway, and I believe that Open University has a really good site. It's a really thorough site that covering reflective practice in general. Right, thanks, guys. Yeah, do keep the comments or questions coming in, but I'm just going to quickly wrap up our session as you are hopefully still typing out your comments. So this session, obviously, we shared our approaches to designing asynchronous teaching online, and also hopefully you have enjoyed and have picked up some useful ideas from our talk in terms of how to design some practical activities that you may want to use in an asynchronous environment. So now we would like to just to know, going back to the first question at the beginning of the session. So now, how confident do you feel about designing and delivering asynchronous teaching online now? One is more confident, and then 2 is less confident, and then 3 is same or unchanged. If you could let us know in the chat, that'd be great.
We might have made you feel less confident about synchronous learning after my disaster. I feel like I could cry because we spent so long thinking about this session. I was like, no, I'm not even going to be able to take part in
Oh
any more
no,
of this
Michelle,
because
it
of my
happens.
internet.
It happens. I got kicked out of one of my session before. All right. Oh, so we have quite a few people said that they are feeling more confident, which is
That's
great.
good.
And if you are actually feeling less confident, but you don't want to let us know, which is absolutely fine. But what I would recommend you is to actually to test out some simple ideas with your colleagues over the summer, or to start with something really simple, but gradually build up your activities to actually scaffold the learning.
Yeah, and sometimes simple works best.
Yeah,
Sometimes really simple activities are just absolutely fine. Like sometimes we can feel like we've got to do something really complicated, really advanced, and it can just go a bit wrong. So there's nothing wrong with keeping something simple. Like I always try and keep as simple as possible. And you can the glory is you can try different, like the thing with asynchronous as well, if students aren't engaging, you can always add in something else. So you could add in a sudden video or podcast or something that you would think, right, that hasn't quite worked, but I'm going to set this instead. So you can always change tack as well when something doesn't work. And if your discussion board falls flat, you can stop using it and try something different, try something that's, again, maybe quicker or simpler if students just simply aren't taking part as well.
Yeah, or maybe even just to check with the students
Yeah,
why
that's
you
a good
didn't
point.
engage
Yeah, why they're
last
not doing
week.
it.
Why did you? Is it because of the task, or is it because of the internet, or is it because of what? Yeah, because obviously I think if most of our teaching will be online in semester one, it is really important to still keep that rapport, to still keep that community of learning going, and the students are. I think sometimes just checking with students how they're doing, how they're keeping, and why they didn't do it.
Yeah, that's very good. Yeah, that is good advice, Jenny, to actually speak to your students and just say why, how are you getting on with this?
Yeah, I definitely recommend to test the ideas out over the summer though, because I
Yeah.
was very keen to use some breakout rooms in Collaborate, in Collaborate Ultra. So then I tested out in one of my summer workshop. It completely didn't work. It was disastrous, but I was glad I did it, because otherwise in the come semester one, I just don't have time to test new ideas out. So yeah, definitely recommend you to just you can even contact us if you're from Leeds. We're happy to share more ideas with you using Teams or in other future CPD sessions. Yeah, so basically, Michelle shared with you some of the resources that you could consider using in your own teaching. We have put some links together into a slide just for your future reference. If Matt don't mind bringing that slide up now on the screen, so people can either take a picture, which I always recommend my students to do, or to obviously just note down these things that we recommended. So we have a library YouTube playlist, critical thinking MOOC, anything from this MOOC. Feel free to just leave the videos or the ideas. It's all under Creative Commons lessons. And also, if your students are doing research project in the next year, so if you're seeing final year students, we have the fantastic final chapter results for you to recommend students to use. And we also recently developed the Step Up to Master's results, which is a transition to master's level results, similar to Flying Start, if you are aware of our transition to university guide, Flying Start. But yeah, again, a lot more information just on our website. Any more questions or comments? We have a few more minutes left.
And I just said as well, the other day when I was looking at how to record things, like just using PowerPoint, I just Google, because there's amazing, really short videos that just show you how to make short videos. So if you're, for whatever reason, wanting to record like a PowerPoint or anything like that, I found some great videos just online that were quite easy to follow. And even if you're not in Leeds and you want to contact us, we're always open to helping people. We're not just limited to people.
One thing on videos, would probably recommend you to think about captions. So it's just good practice to have captions, to have subtitles so that they're more accessible. Say if you were to load your videos onto YouTube or onto media site, if you're from Leeds, again, those captions will be available once you load them. Or alternatively, if you're recording via a different version of Collaborate than our Leeds version currently, but also I think it's coming up. There's the new version of Collaborate. There will be live captions. I think also Teams does live captions as well. So
yeah, I think it's going to be a requirement to, if you do a video, to provide captions.
Captions.
So students
Yeah.
can access. Okay. So if anyone's got any last comments or questions, but if not, we will wrap up and say thank you very much for coming along. It's been great. You've all really contributed. Apologies again for my I didn't leave the session for my internet just dying on me. Oh, Amy, that's really helpful. Stream does captions, but you need to check them. Yeah. So if you do a video in something like PowerPoint, which doesn't have captions, if you just upload it into something that does like YouTube or a stream, then you can use their captions and edit it. Oh, garlic bread. I didn't notice that. I love it. That is a great name.
Thanks,
thank
Helen.
you. Thanks, guys. I hope you found it useful, and hopefully we can continue to share ideas after this session as well. Yeah, there will never be perfect captions. Oh, yeah. I know. The kind of names you might come up with, it can be quite dodgy. You've really got to check that.
Check, yeah.
Thanks, Melanie.
Well, thanks, Martin.
Okay. Okay, so thank you all for coming, and hopefully you'll be coming to more of these live session events in the future. So we will say goodbye from us both. Bye.
Bye.